You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. And be sure to smash that like button. Great time to catch up with Shea Dixon on 3, the Bengal Tigers, with us every week. Shady, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing great. We appreciate the time as always, and we got you for a couple of segments here today, so we appreciate that flexibility as well. Let me begin with the news that literally just within the last 15 minutes broke. C.J. Wiley, Chuck Wiley's son, LSU legacy, was down to 3. Georgia, LSU, Florida State. It's the Seminoles. So give me a little bit of context here on C.J. Wiley.
Yeah, Wiley's a top 10 receiver on 3, top 100 prospect nationally, and LSU and Georgia had recruited him for years, had been considered really the 2 teams that it was going to come down to, and then he took an FSU official visit this past weekend. They had been in the mix for him, Matt, but weren't considered to be kind of that final 2. But as we got closer to decision day and through the announcement, Wiley even said he was not going to tell any coaches or any media where he was going. That doesn't happen a lot this day and age, but he didn't. He went into this one with everybody as blind to the decision as the coaching staff would be. And he put on the Florida State hat, and the guy at Milton High School was hosting it, thought that was part of the bit and just sort of waited for him to do something else. And he was like, no, it's Florida State. And I think it threw everybody for a loop, even the people there at Milton High. So the dark horse wins out there at the end, the team nobody expected.
I think the feeling was, I think you and I talked about this the last several weeks, maybe there was a thought he was leaning to Georgia. So rate this as how big of a surprise?
Oh, in the modern recruiting era where everything seems to leak at some point, this has got to be up there. Toviano pulled off something similar a year ago when everybody kind of didn't know even until he was going up on stage. But for an in-state kid from Georgia, I think the Georgia fans right now, if we switched over to their local ESPN affiliate, would be outraged and very upset. They would rank this as a 10 on the surprise level. They thought it was going to be the Bulldogs, and if anything, it was LSU that would pull it off.
So, Shay, with LSU not getting C.J. Wiley, how much of a need is receiver here in this 2025 class? What other options are out there?
Yeah, I mean, they'll always sign 4 guys on average a class, right? So you've got Teron Francis, who remains the highest-ranked receiver out of Louisiana, coming out of Edna Carr. He's committed. Decommit Moore, the number 1 receiver, was committed at one point, backed off, did make an official visit to LSU. We'll see if he comes for the Bayou Splash later this month. I think most feel that Texas, in the end will probably or maybe win out there, given that was the school early on everybody thought he was going to go to, and has a lot of family in the area. But he's on the board. Jamie French is one that a lot of people are watching, another 5-star receiver who visited LSU just this morning. Steve Wiltfong and Chad Simmons at On 3 did of every uncommitted 5-star kind of a where I'm at right now, what would my prediction be? And for French, Chad Simmons said LSU. And French is a guy who's kind of kept things as quiet as C.J. Wiley had in terms of not really saying, he'll name a leader here and there, but then would name a new leader. It has kind of kept everyone on his toes. But his mom went to Southern. As they grew up in the Feliciana area. She did. Her family's still here. So he's a Florida guy, but has connections to the Baton Rouge area. And then there are others. Look, they've been after Khalik Lockett, a 5-star receiver. He took an official visit same weekend as Jamie French. She just got done with the wave of them. And then they had a number of guys camp here recently. So I probably left somebody off that list, but it gives you a feel for they've really been swinging for the fences, Matt. I mean, I think that when you look at I've got it pulled up, the top 10 receivers on 3, Wiley was one of them, but everybody else I just mentioned is in that group. And then a guy who ranks number 7 in the country on the On 3 industry rankings is Derek Meadows, and he took a midweek official visit this past week. So I think that 6 of the top 10 receivers took official visits to LSU this past month, and now it's just a matter of Wiley was the first domino to drop. Are they able to get one of these other guys?
Shay Dixon's with us on 3, the Bengal Tiger. There's another bit of bad. We're going to get to the good news, I promise. But the other bad news was Jabori Antoine decommitting. Shay, with Corey Raymond being from New Iberia, Jabori Antoine being from New Iberia, cornerback. I mean, this just made so much sense that he would end up in the LSU class. First of all, what led to this decommitment?
I think it's probably a combination of things. Look, they had 13 commits, now they have 12. He's one of the guys who was taken. He and Keelan Moses were taking official visits elsewhere. He had been to Miami, he'd been to Florida State. He had been public about it, doing interviews, sharing all of his photos. So everybody knew he was taking visits. It was, is he serious about looking around, or is this just for fun? And I think him backing off his commitment shows, hey, look, I am looking around a bit, and we already knew that given he was taking visits. But I also think it's one where LSU will just say, okay, we will double down and buckle in even harder. And it's beyond Corey Raymond. I mean, you'll have Frank Wilson and plenty of people on that staff involved in this one. So I think that by signing day, he still ends up at LSU. But look, it's not the first Westgate player that would have left. We saw the number two safety in the country head to Texas out of Westgate not too long ago. And in the class prior to that, Danny Lewis, the tight end, went to Bama. So LSU signed Demarion Johnson out of New Iberia or out of Westgate a year ago. So I thought they would make it back-to-back classes of doing it. Now that Antoine's decommitted, they've got to go back and get him. But I still think by signing day he'll be in this class. And it's a corner, a DB, whether corner or safety. They need it. So they'll certainly be all over him.
Shay, can you just explain the recruiting prediction machine? Because even though Jabori Antoine's decommitted, the On3 recruiting prediction machine still shows a 95.4% chance of Antoine ending up in the LSU class. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, a part of that, but I'll eliminate that factor in a second, is that I made a prediction. The only prediction he has on there is my prediction from January before he committed originally, right? And then decommitted recently. So that doesn't disappear, and I haven't changed it. So I'm still writing LSU. But if I didn't even have a pick in there, the percentage, and I really like the RPM for doing this even when there's not picks, is how many times have you visited a school? What's the proximity from your home to that school? What is the NFL kind of pedigree of that school at your position? And all these things factor into the very, different percentages of how they come up with the final percentage. But I think that's accurate still, that even with Florida and Miami getting those visits, Florida State and Miami, I would still say that LSU is the team to beat for an in-state kid like him.
Shay Dixon's with us on 3, the Bengal Tiger. Shay, you did tell us last week to look out for Carius Kern, the number one interior offensive lineman in the country, pop for LSU. And they've sort of been on a bit of a heater. We'll get to the weekend here in a second. But what might be next for LSU coming off this monster recruiting weekend this past weekend?
Yeah, and really a long month. It was double-digit visitors almost every weekend, minus the one where they had Decommit Moore by himself here. And as I mentioned, they had some midweek official visitors. So I think we'll see a lot of these guys. They're all seniors, right? All about to be seniors. And NIL era or not, everybody sort of kept to that. The large percentage have kept to that script of, hey, I'd like to do something before my senior year begins. Then I can just focus on school, football, all of that, and not have to worry about anything else. So a lot of guys are going to be lining up decision dates. I know July 4th is one that LSU fans will want to mark down. That's the day Zion Williams, four-star D lineman out of Texas, will make his decision. And he's been a big-time target for LSU all along coming out of Lufkin. And the On3 RPM has LSU as leader there. So D linemen, D tackles is what they certainly need. And I think Bo Davis will get one there, and they're heads up against teams like Texas and A&M. But DB, I think, is where we really see it, Matt, as dominoes start to fall. Jace Thomas out of Destrehan is the guy who's going to commit July 13th. He's got an LSU offer now, so I'm keeping an eye on him. And then I would look at guys like C.J. Jim Coyley, a safety out of Nashville, four-star, who told me he's going to commit towards the end of July. I've got LSU as the team to beat on that one. And then a number of guys, whether it's like Cade Phillips, a corner that Corey Raymond's been recruiting out of Texas, or Jason Stokes, another one, has said that at some point before their senior season, so July or August, that they'll announce a decision. I would think that after such a fast start on the offensive side, which is expected, they fired the entire defensive staff. So those guys are playing a little bit of catch up to where the number one offense in the country and that staff is with recruiting this past season or coming off this past season. So I think that between now and the start of senior seasons, 75%, if not more, of these commits are going to be coming on defense.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.